Good to see everyone again. I'll just share really quickly on the AWS side. There was a ton of excitement yesterday. I know we did a wrap up, with this group at the end, but people were just really excited about meeting with everyone, starting to dig in, and just had really great things to say about each of you. So everyone's looking forward to digging in. I want to be mindful of time, so we're going to kind of dig right into this. This morning, we are fortunate to have Jason Mortensen with us to talk about innovation at AWS. I know yesterday we talked a lot about working backwards. Well, we're about to really, really dig into working backwards. And Jason is the head of worldwide working backwards engagements. So it's some of the mechanisms that we work through with our end customers. We really think it's a great way to think about innovation. And one of the reasons we put this at the beginning is to kind of level set everyone and kind of help get on the same page as to how we think here. Not that you have to think like us, but almost to frame up how we approach things. Just and hopefully that eases the collaborative process. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason. Jason, thanks a lot.
Yeah, Adam, thank you. And thanks for having me. As Adam mentioned, I'm part of our digital innovation group here at AWS. I lead our strategy for working backwards engagements, which encompasses many things. And actually, prior to coming to AWS, I was in 20 years roughly in healthcare related fields. My last last organization, I led healthcare solution development and business strategy for Cisco for our vertical. So I developed a lot of telehealth solutions before they were cool. Little did I know we needed a global pandemic to get telehealth to be adopted. I only could have predicted that. My solution would have been a lot more successful than it was, but it is what it is. So here today to talk to you a little bit about, kind of, again, how do we scale, we being Amazon AWS, how have we scaled from, the originally size we were way back when, to the size we are now, really through culture and mechanisms. And as Adam mentioned there, everything that I'll say here is not the only way to do things, and probably something a presenter will never ever say at the start of a presentation, but it may not be the best way. But hey, it's our way. It's worked very, very well for us. And here to share a little bit of that insight and how we approach things, and hopefully of valuable to you as a couple takeaways coming out of this. So when we think about innovation, we really organize our culture around 4 pillars: culture, mechanisms, the architecture that supports that, and then our organization, how we structure our teams. A lot of this is highlighted, and some of you may have seen this before, what we call our culture of innovation presentation. I'm not gonna go over the whole COI presentation in detail here, but just hitting on a couple things quickly, kind of relevant to this group. And a couple things that we're gonna dive into is culture, and then mechanisms. I think that's the 2 most key things as we think about, how do you prepare for growth, speed, and scale. It all starts with establishing that culture and putting together some good mechanisms. So starting with culture to begin with, and as you may have heard or know, Amazon has 16 leadership principles, and these really guide our actions every day. Describes how we do business, how we lead, how we keep customers at the heart of our decisions. And a little history here: we're not and haven't been immune to growth challenges, right? There was a time Amazon started, we didn't have leadership principles from the very founding of the company. And we discovered that it was very difficult to get talent and new talent and leaders enabled to make decisions rapidly, right? And not get bogged down into lines of communications and what is right and what is wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And if we put together leadership principles, then we knew what the North Star, so to speak, was, right? And it enabled our people to make high velocity and high quality decisions when I integrate these into my decision process. Really, again, serving as the guidepost is helping us determine if what we're doing is in line with the principles of the organization. Now, you're going to see some, actually conflict, and that's intentional. So there's leadership principles like bias for action, which is focused on making a decision quickly and with not all of the data that you would like to have, maybe 70% of the data that you would like to have. And then dive deep, which is focused on diving deep and knowing the details of data or of a specific problem, a challenge or opportunity, right? Those two things kind of conflict with each other, right? And which one I lean into, is very much dependent on the situation, on the type of decision I'm making. Is it easily reversible or not? What's the impact of that decision? What level of detail is really needed to be able to inform it? How quickly do I need to make it? How quickly do I need to move? A lot of factors that go into there, but it serves as that common framework, that common understanding, and helps guide our decisions and our overall culture. Now, the common question that we get, and you may be thinking as you grow your companies, and is how do I integrate these into my culture? These being leadership principles or other cultural elements, right? It's not magic, right? I don't go to Hogwarts. I don't learn how to do it from some professor there, right? But it is very difficult, right? Integrating culture and establishing a culture for organizations and maintaining that as you grow is much easier said than done, right? And sometimes I may think that I need some sort of mystical help to actually maintain and do that. But the real secret that we find and how we have integrated it as we continue to grow is just continuous integration. It's not something, leadership principles, and again, whatever the equivalent is in your organization, isn't something that we read on the first day. So I've, in my career, started with many companies. And what happens when you start with a company, right? You're given maybe an employee handbook, or now it's all digital, right? And you read the company's mission statement. Usually it's like the first paragraph of that employee handbook. And that all sounds good. And if you're like me, you forget that at about day 0.25, right? And everything else you're just bombarded with, right? And you couldn't recite it if you had to, right? So we focus on just integrating that into all processes and mechanisms that we follow. So giving you an example, or examples, I should say. During the interview process, we have a role called a bar raiser. So I also happen to be a bar raiser. But in our interview process, we have what's called a loop. Loop is made up of 4 to 6 individuals that are interviewing the candidate. One of those is a bar raiser. Bar raiser, one of my core responsibilities is to make sure that the employee is a good cultural fit for Amazon. Not necessarily a fit for the role. In fact, most interviews I'm involved in the bar raiser, I have no idea what that person does on a day-to-day basis. And, like I interviewed somebody that did some fancy genomics stuff. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about if he tried to describe it to me. So I'm not focused on role. I'm focused on, is this person a cultural fit? and assessed via, by the way, the leadership principles. Each person in the loop is assigned generally 2 leadership principles to assess the candidate against. And I'm also divorced from the process, right? I'm not a member of that team. So I don't have, and other bar raisers don't have the issue of, hey, well, this person wasn't that great, but if I don't fill this role now, my boss is going to pull it from me. I'd rather have somebody in the role than nobody in the role. And so somebody's better than nobody, even though they aren't the best. As a bar raiser, we don't care. I don't care if you fill the role or not, outside of the fact that we got to serve our customers. But we're making sure that they're a good fit for Amazon, that they raise the bar for other candidates. Focused again on if the employee wants to have a role in the future that's different than the one that they're hired in, they're going to be a great employee for Amazon going forward, no matter what role they're in, right? Of course, assuming they have the functional competency to do so. But we focus in our daily communications. So I may go to Adam in a communication. I'll say, hey, Adam, great customer obsession setting up this. Everybody really seemed to enjoy it and they were really involved, right? Or I'd go to one of my employees and say, hey, Bob, I need you to show some more bias for action on this initiative, right? Or you really needed to dive deep here, et cetera, et cetera. We use that as a common framework. And then when I say that to Adam, he kind of knows what I mean, right? And he knows what background information we're coming from. We use it as part of our accolades, our yearly review process, where we assess individuals when we do a 360 review. And when I fill that out for a person, I'm going to say up to 3 leadership principles they have strength in, up to 3 that they need improvement on, or could use some development on.
Jason, just a quick question. Do you use principles for just leaders, or is it for even independent contributors? Like, what is the level or whatever?
Yeah, great. And Omar, first off, I saw that in the chat. Second off, thank you for bringing it up, because chat can be hard for reading. So anybody else has questions, please feel free to interrupt as Omar, or I'm sorry. Did I pronounce your Okar? I'm sorry. My apologies. So please, again, I should have said that. Please feel free to chime in with questions as we go. But to answer the question specifically, and thank you for the question, it's everyone. It's everyone. So everyone is expected to embrace and follow leadership principles. In fact, as part of our culture, honestly, if you don't embrace them, you're going to have a hard time at Amazon fitting in and being successful. There are some that are more indexed to hiring managers. So there is a leadership principle: hire and develop the best, right? That's really more for hiring managers than it is for individual contributors. But with that exception, it's really everyone. Our narrative culture, the last thing on the slide. So as you may know, outside of things like this, we don't use PowerPoints internally. So when we have an initiative that we want to roll out, in fact, I just rolled one out this morning. I had a 4-page document. We sit down, or virtually sit down now, and convey the document outlines that initiative. We send it and we have a read for 15 or 20 minutes. And people comment and ask questions in the document. So we will use the leadership principles as part of this too. Hey, are we thinking of big enough for this initiative? Is this customer obsessed? I don't get this data point. We need to dive deeper into there, right? And again, integrated into those communications, just like we would have in an email or verbally as well. The narrative also, of course, you get other questions as to, hey, I'm not sure if this new initiative is clear. I have an issue with how this is going to roll out, et cetera, et cetera. The same thing that you would have in any other interactive conversation. But we use it again or use leadership principles and integrated part of our document and narrative review process as well. Excuse me. So let's hit on mechanisms next, and mechanisms. The way we define those is something that has a defined input, a defined output, and a process. So something I can put a process around is something I can measure. So I always like to think about, what is not a mechanism, right? A mechanism is not good intentions, right? Hey, Jason, you did a bad job on that. You messed up that communication. Could you please do better next time, right? Sure. I'm not sure you can measure do better or good intentions in doing so. And that's not effective, right? We look at, how could I measure that? What can I put a process around it? And even we look at correction of error documents internally. We'll look at, can we mechanize things? So if I had a correction of error document that, the operator failed to push this button and then something happened, right? I'm not going to look at it from an employee perspective and say, well, that, what's my corrective action? Operator should push the button next time. Well, duh, right? He should have tried harder, right? He should have remembered how to do so, right? That's not effective. We'll look at, why did the button need to be pressed, right? Could I automate it? Could I put a script around it? Could I send an alert if it wasn't done, et cetera, et cetera? Because then I can actually measure that and I can put a process around it. Now, one of our key mechanisms, Adam started this out with, is working backwards. So it's our core innovation mechanisms, and it starts with diving deep to understand our customers, understand what they need or what they want, what's a pain point they have that we can address. What is that challenge or opportunity we can deliver to our customers? Now, again, it's one way to innovate. Back to my opening comments, it's not the only way. It may not be the best way, right? Others can innovate in many, many other ways. You can be a fast follower and do things better. You can build it and they will come, right? Especially around new technologies. There's many, many ways to do it, but we start with the customer and then work backwards to a solution. So what we sometimes jokingly say as working forwards is, hey, I have the solution in mind, and then I'm going to bring it to my marketing department and figure out how we sell it, right? If you have a solution in mind, that's great. Go build it, go deploy it. Super awesome. But again, that's not the innovation process we follow. We follow deeply understanding the customer and working backwards from there. And there's a couple core reasons for that. The quote from Jeff that I like: customers are always beautifully and wonderfully dissatisfied, even when they report being happy and business is great, right? So you think about like delivery times. Me being a longtime Amazon customer, I thought it was pretty great that you could get free shipping if you ordered like $35 or more at that time, and it came to you in 7 days. That was pretty awesome, right? Never would I have thought, oh, well, what happens if I have this like membership program thing, and then I can get it for free no matter what I order, how much? And then what if I can get it in 2 days? And what if I can get it in 1 day? And what if I can get it in 2 hours? And what if I can get it in 1 hour, right? But that continued innovation, continue looking how you please your customer has enabled the continuous innovation that we've had, and also open innovation, right? I'm not confined. If I think about my customer, my scope is as broad as I want to make it, right? So I can think about, how do I continually improve the speed of delivery, right? I can also think about, hey, what if we disrupt ourselves, right? What if I start selling ebooks instead of physical hard copies of books, right? What if I enter this new business, this thing eventually called AWS, right? That has nothing to do with retail organizations, if you think about, right? Or even on the AWS side, I would have never anticipated we would have ground station, which is kind of I think of it as satellite for rent, right? But when I think about it, I don't confine myself to what I do today. It really opens up that innovation scope and that potential. We start with these 5 questions. Who is your customer? What's customer problem or opportunity? Is the most important customer benefit clear? How do you know? And what does the experience look like, right? We start with these, and kind of once we understand these, then we'll start to work to that solution, or at least once we understand the first 2, right? Who is your customer? What is that problem or opportunity? Like any innovation practices, or some of the best ones, it's deceptively simple. I could spend 5 minutes answering these. I could also spend probably 5 weeks really diving into these, depending on which level of detail we get into. But it really, again, starts with that customer, deeply understanding the customer, and then we employ working backwards. So customer at the center. I think about the problem or opportunity, then I work backwards to a solution to address that problem or opportunity, and I write out that solution in a press release. Which is a little bit of a peculiar mechanism that we have. But the press release is a future-looking press release. So it's going to say, today, October 2030, Amazon releases package teleportation services to your home, right? And outline the value of that, like you'd have, your first, first paragraph describing what it is. I'm going to have a customer quote in there. It says, hey, I thought 1 hour delivery was fast. I never thought I could get 1 second delivery, right? And then, a quote from the stakeholder says, we're pleased to deliver this. We're pleased to innovate on behalf of our customers. Of course, a middle paragraph describing what it is, et cetera, et cetera. So it helps to frame in, what does that solution look like? And what value am I delivering to my customer? And then we'll be accompanied by FAQs, right? There's 2 sets of FAQs. One's a stakeholder or internal, you can think of it that way. One is customer FAQs. So, stakeholder FAQs would be, what do you expect? What's the liability of this solution? How do we repair the teleportation pod if it goes bad? How do we deliver these? What fulfillment centers do we have that supports this, right? How much is this going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. All those things that we'd expect for stakeholders to ask. And then same thing for the customers, is this safe? What if my cat steps on it? Can I get anything delivered, or is there a size, et cetera, right? Everything you expect customers to deliver really helps frame in that solution. And then the visuals, it's kind of what you would expect. Maybe it's a storyboard, maybe it's a mock interface. The rule that we have with the visuals is the fidelity of the visual should match the fidelity of the solution. So I'm not going to have a very, very detailed mock UX interface for some solution that isn't really fully formed, right? It could just be a drawing with stick figures on paper. But then we're going to sit down. I'm going to write that in a PR FAQ. I'm going to do that document review process that I discussed before, right? And generally, after that document review process, and again, there may be several cycles in this, depending on which feedback I received. But this is our mechanism for going forward. At the end of a final doc review process, the leadership, whoever needs to make that decision, will give a yes or no, again, dependent on the document itself, right? We don't build a prototype to initially make that decision of a go, no go decision. It also serves, besides getting great feedback and the level of detail I need to get in the written word versus a PowerPoint presentation, the level of thought that goes into that, is all of value. But the one also hidden value is it kind of democratizes the process. Everybody's engaged in a paper read. So when I'm sitting down with a group, it very much becomes less, and sitting down with the group and everybody's provided their feedback, it inherently becomes less of my solution and my proposal and more of our proposal, right? And because everybody's had their feedback, everybody's now more invested at that point. All right. Another way to think about growth is a flywheel. We didn't invent the flywheel. You know, good to great originally came out of, right? But I use a flywheel to think about what are the durable needs for our customer, right? What's not going to change? And if I discuss or outline the retail flywheel here, the concept is if I have a great selection, I'll have great customer experience. More customer experience drives more traffic drives more sellers to the platform, more sellers is more selection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That sponsors growth. With growth, I can have a lower cost structure, leads to lower prices, leads to a better customer experience, and so on and so forth. But again, the durable needs, right? Focusing on what isn't going to change for a customer, right? As we often say, it'd be hard to picture a customer coming to us and be like, hey, Amazon, we love your service. I just wish I had to pay more for shipping. Or in the healthcare, right? I just really love being sick. I just wish I felt this way all of the time, right? It's not going to happen, right? So looking at those things that we need to focus on that aren't going to change helps to reduce a lot of that noise and distraction for kind of the squirrel and the dog scenario, right? Chasing whatever might be new and hip and trendy that doesn't have long-term sustainable growth or a long-term durable need as part of it. So we've hit on mechanisms, we've hit on culture. Let's touch a little bit on organization. Organization, I'm not going to dive a ton into this, but you may have heard we have this thing called 2 pizza teams. The concept of a 2 pizza team is I have a team that is no bigger than can be fed with 2, I say American size, large pizzas over lunch. So think of like 10 people roughly, right? But besides the people, is very much of a kind of a DevOps process, right? I have a team that owns something. That something may be just an API, right? But they own it. They're responsible. If they were there from the start, they're responsible from the initial spec design to coding, to deployment, to support, to maintenance, to end of life, if end of life ever comes, right? They're responsible for the whole project soup to nuts, right? I don't build it and then hand it off to my support department and say, go deal with all the issues, right? Which enforces those LPs. Again, enforces ownership because I own it. Customer obsession because I hear from the customers. As an engineer, or our engineers, I should say, carry pagers. Of course, it's on a phone now, but if their service goes down in the middle of the night, they get paged directly, right? There isn't a support department, which gives them, of course, that very tight visibility as to the issues that customers are facing, if any, or the feedback that they have or improvements that they would like, so on and so forth, right? Also, by the way, enforces some great behavior because if I don't like getting paged at 2 o'clock in the morning, might be more conscious of my code, right? And making sure it is bulletproof, right? Also enforces other things, because think big, that they're owning it, they're delivering the results directly, et cetera, et cetera. So really kind of, again, making them an autonomous unit. And one structure we get commonly asked is, hey, all right, there's this team of 10, but there's these like gigantic services. So there's, say, EC2, our compute service, right? So how is that structured? Well, there's hundreds of 2 pizza teams to answer the question. And eventually they'll all roll up to a single threaded leader. So a single threaded leader is kind of responsible for for the overall program, the overall strategy, and helping to make sure that they're aligned. But the teams underneath her are working on a specific and owning a specific component of that product or service. Yeah. Working Backwards by Colin and Bill. I'll say on the official stance, Amazon does not authorize any third-party books that are written about us. Colin, the Working Backwards book by Colin and Bill is one of the best ones out there, in Jason's opinion, unofficial AWS stance. Flexibility and speed. So a question that we get often is, all right, I have these two pizza teams. Everybody's doing things their own way. Doesn't that have a lot of duplication of people working on the same thing? And the answer is, yeah, sure does. There is a far above zero chance that two people are working on the same thing, or two teams are working on the same thing. We embrace that, right? We don't encourage it. When we find out about it, we will address it, but we embrace it in the aspect of we'd rather index on moving quickly and having more ideas than having everything have to filter through a central approval process, right? Which just takes a lot of time. Now, again, when we discover those, we'll address those, but again, it's really more indexing on speed than indexing on control in that case. We also don't like to take dependencies. So I'll take a dependency on a team or service for something that's proven. I'm going to use S3, our storage service, to develop something, but I don't like to take a dependency on something that is to be coming. So I don't want to say, hey, my product is due in July. I'll need you to add this feature to your service by June for my thing to be successful. That's very much frowned upon. If I do so, I better have a mitigation plan. Because if that team said, oh, sorry, we had this other thing come up and now we're delayed until August, just past your July delivery timeframe, it's not that team's fault, it's my fault. I should have done something to mitigate that dependency correctly, or not have taken it in the first place. But we don't reinvent the wheel, right? We're going to clone, modify, and own others' code. The other thing, the little odd thing about Amazon, again, this is focus on speed, it's focus on innovation, is we always have a clause in most of our statements or most of our practice documents that says, unless you know a better way, right? So there's a best practice that a team develops to do X, Y, or Z. Even our leadership principles at the bottom says, unless you know better ones. Which means people are free to invent, right? People are free to do things differently. So like one concrete example, we don't dictate which coding language developers have to use. Use which language is best fit for you and your program and your initiative, right? It could be, Oracle migration. Here's the best practice for doing a migration from Oracle to AWS. But again, if you want to migrate your service differently, if you think you know a better way, go ahead and do it, right? And I think of it as like a GPS analogy, right? So if I put my destination into Google, it's going to give me a path, right? I can choose to follow it. It's probably the best way, quite frankly, especially since I'm directionally impaired. But I may choose a different way, and that I think is better. So if, like my friend I have a friend of mine who just drove his motorcycle out to visit me last weekend. He took a different route than Google because he wants to take back roads, not highways, right, on his motorcycle. So he had a better way. He chose to take it. Now, there is control in there. Don't get me wrong. It's not mass chaos. There are toll gates, if you will. There are things that are non-negotiable. I must have my CI/CD pipeline set up in a certain way. I must do performance monitoring using a standard tool set. I must meet security compliance standards, right? There are things that are non-negotiable that you have to do. But how you get there is up to you, not mandated by a central organization. Because again, innovation, right? The more I mandate, the more I confine innovation and new ideas, right? A delicate balance. Speed is not preordained. Speed is a choice. You have to have a culture and urgency that wants to experiment. You can't flip a switch and get speed, right? One of my favorite quotes from Andy last year's reInvent. But things are going to break, right? Failure is going to occur. It's the nature of the business. If I move quickly, if I experiment, some things are just not going to work. Embrace it. We've had quite a few. Fire phone, restaurants, Amazon destinations, probably nobody's ever heard of. Amazon Askville, nobody's ever heard of. Some things that just plain didn't work. But that's cool, right? As long as we view it, failure is going to happen. It's not a failure unless I didn't learn anything from it. If I learn from it and then I dump that into new products, new services, new approaches, that's great, right? That's the nature of experimentation. Now, if I fail time and time again, I have an issue there. But I'm probably not learning from that failure. A lot of AWS executive quotes here, but there's this other famous inventor that noted, I haven't failed. I found 10,000 things that won't work. Right? Or, back to the Amazon quote, it's not an experiment if you knew it was going to work from the start, right? Our now executive chair. So summing up our conversation today, and implementing a transformation strategy, early stage development, it can be easier. As you're building your companies, easier, not easy, right? Back to my previous comments, building a culture and building mechanisms, I found is one of the hardest things to do in an organization, because people are very unique animals, and we have our own approaches and thoughts and things, and come from very diverse backgrounds and diverse set of experiences. So it's very hard to build that unified culture. But if you're early or looking to transform a period, right, and looking to adopt things, there's probably 4 things that I would concentrate on first. I like the customer-obsessed innovation practice. I've used it many times. I've developed products in the past, but it does serve as a open mechanism to really innovate and really make sure that what you're developing is going to serve your intended customers and solve their problems or address their opportunities. Organize your teams around a product, not around functional roles. Again, that 2-pizza team concept really fosters ownership and autonomy. Really, I've had teams in the past, again, kind of throwing it over the wall to service, and some of the behavior and products that those teams have developed would not have been the same, if they had to own it and if they had to deal with the decisions that they made. Move to a DevOps life cycle kind of goes with that previous statement as well. And last, where possible, integrate rapidly, right? I know, depending on which field you're in, I've had scars from medical device approval, and know that can be difficult to integrate rapidly in a highly regulated environment if your product is in a regulated environment. But where possible, integrate as rapidly as possible, and get that out and get that feedback from the customers. So we've had a couple questions already, but I think we have a couple minutes remaining as well, and I could stay longer than that if we can go over. Happy to answer 1 or 2 questions, depending on how much time Adam wants to give us today.
I would say Kids X is the boss, but let's open it up. And Jason, I got to tell you that was awesome. I mean, I know that I know all of this, but to see it summarized in one presentation was that was great. So
thank you, Adam.
The bar was accurate.
And can I add one thing just as additional color there? Like one thing I learned, Adam and I are roughly contemporary in our time at Amazon. And the thing you hear when you join is that the things like the leadership principles are things that actually are lived out, like people take them seriously. And any of the AWS folks on the call can attest to that. But also, I mean, Adam and I are literally doing a working backwards document right now, that he and I are working on with a partner. And so this stuff is really put into use here across all the Amazon orgs. And so it's not just interesting presentations, even though it's that as well. Like it's something that's really a useful framework.
And that is a good point. While we can't necessarily share details, we approach every engagement like that. So this in particular is a massive worldwide enterprise, and we're using the exact same approach that we would use with an individual customer of any size.
Yeah, I mean, we use it for this program, right? We started with a PR FAQ for this accelerator.
Yep.
Yeah, and would the question in the chat, would the people and culture building process be the same for a remote company? I assume what you mean where employees are remote. Yes, and in fact, as we have gone, along with everybody else, right? Remote over the last, too darn long. That the leadership principles and everything I talked about of kind of integrating it has really served to gel and unify our culture, and would have been far more difficult if we didn't have those, or if we didn't have that approach. Now, completely honest, it has strained those, as we're not unique in that, and has had additional challenges where I don't have that, that in-person cultural components. But no, I wouldn't suggest any tweaks to that outside of, not tied to leadership principles, but tweaks that everybody is doing now of how do I foster and do activities that have more of a team building aspect to them, and team building benefits that I don't get when we're not in person anymore.
Are we allowed to ask questions off of the chat?
Of course.
Of course.
So when you're working back from the customer needs, is there a template that everybody gets when they're starting out within the organization? Or is it kind of to write the narrative? How do you?
No. Yeah. So there is a general framework that is developed and the process to follow. But we don't do templates or scripts for documents. There again, some general guidelines to follow, but the templates and scripts, although Jennifer can make it easier. Of course, that's always the argument of hey, everybody's reinventing things; they don't know what to expect, et cetera, et cetera. We also try to balance that out with, if I have a template, then everything looks the same, and everybody is just following that, which again detracts or doesn't enhance the innovations, the new innovations that people may come up with. So we don't in general, outside of in the PR, it says you must have a title, you must have a customer statement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, Emma. Yeah.
Yeah. So, quick question. I'm a big believer in culture, but I'm curious to hear your opinion. Why did you pick this presentation out of anything you could present to us during this segment? What do you hope us to take away from this?
Yeah. So the the original ask and takeaway, great question, Emma, is, as we think about we being yourselves and think about growth as an organization, the common question that we get and customers looking for help with is how do I grow, right, and continue to scale? And when I grow and continue to, and when I do so, how do I keep that environment and that culture that I had at the start and was successful for me to get to that point, and how do I maintain that, right? So it's really setting up and hopefully lessons learned for your long-term success as you grow all your individual organizations and products.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we have to keep moving, but certainly we can continue these types of conversations. If there are questions for Jason, we can reach out. And certainly, myself, Joe, Martina, we are deeply immersed in all of this, although not nearly as eloquent as Jason. But so happy to answer these things as well. And again, Jason, thank you. That was phenomenal.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for everything you do and being part of this program.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
So we are going to move to the next program, and we've got Yuri Rosenman and Michael Leonard here from AWS. Yuri is the lead for HCLS for the partner network and is going to share some information around that. I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday. This is going to be a deeper dive. And then Michael leads our healthcare vertical for Marketplace. Again, I know we covered this yesterday. These two are the experts. So they're going to provide an overview. I am sure that there are going to be a ton of questions that come out of this. We will have time for some, but engagement with both Yuri and his team and Mike, that will be ongoing throughout the accelerator. So, if we don't get to questions today, we will definitely link everyone up and make sure that we get you on the right path for whatever you're interested in. Go for it, Yuri. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam, and good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's my pleasure to be here with you. It's a fantastic introduction from Adam. I'm certainly hoping that would leave enough time for a Q&A session. It is a complex topic. I think it's important for us to spend as much time as we can answering questions. But as Adam indicated, I'm very much accessible. I'm here for you. I want to make sure that you guys are successful in building a relationship with Amazon, and certainly relationship with Amazon Partner Network is an important motion in your progression. So let's get started. My name is Yuri Rosenman. I've been with AWS Yuri? For about...
Your slides is in presentation mode, so we're seeing like the note section.
Okay, can you see them? Is that okay now?
No, we can see the slides.
You can see them? Okay. Okay. For some reason, whenever I move to the presentation mode on Zoom, it does this. We're so used to using Chime, sometimes it does get in the way. Let's see, is this now progressing okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so my name is Yuri Rosenman. I've been with AWS for about 18 months. I'm primarily a life sciences guy. I've spent 40 years in one way or the other in the space. I worked for pharmaceutical company, Pfizer, for almost 10 years, Applied Biosystems for 7 years doing different things, including DNA sequencing at the beginning of Human Genome Project, primarily based on capillary electrophoresis. Most recently, prior to joining AWS, I was with Fitbit, where I ran their healthcare and life sciences business with a primary focus on software as a medical device for atrial fibrillation, sleep apnea, and ECG. So that narrow path of 510K clearance for consumer grade devices. So why our partners are attracted to AWS, really for the same reason as many of our customers are attracted to AWS. It's really about how we manage security on the platform, security and regulatory compliance. And security is job one, really, for us, making sure that whether it's an application, whether it's a service, we want to make sure that our partners are delivering solutions with the greatest degree of compliance. Whether it's HIPAA compliance, whether it's a GDPR, whether it's California Consumer Protection Agency compliance. So all of those things are reviewed during the period of technical enablement. And again, it's not a prescriptive process. In many cases, our partners understand how to build their solutions, but we certainly provide a lot of input into doing it. In some cases, maybe with a greater degree of focus. In some cases, solution may be applicable at both healthcare and life sciences, where different regulations may be in play. Experience, a lot of people that are employed here at Amazon and Pan Amazon, including our initiatives around Amazon Care and PillPack and other areas, have been in the space for a really, really long time. So they understand what works, what doesn't work so well. Some of the scars are certainly visible from being in the industry for a long time. So I would urge you to use this experience, especially as we have a lot of folks in the organization that have long tenure working with partners and ensuring that their solutions are compelling to our customers. So they understand, again, how to position various offerings and how to progress partners along the path of hopefully to success. Global footprint. This becomes very, very important. In some ways, it is related to security and compliance. In some cases, you have to think about the data gravity and where the data needs to reside. In some cases, it could be due to the application, where the application is located. Sometimes you may be thinking, am I driving the data to the application or application to the data, which is more of a technical question. But there could be questions around where the data cannot leave a specific region. So especially if the data contains any kind of non-de-identified information related to the patient. So some of those things need to be considered when you're thinking about setting up the right location topology for your solution and how the solution is offered to customers as it becomes important. Artificial intelligence, MI, machine learning, natural language processing. Those are the areas that we have integrated into a lot of our services. So as you begin to build your solutions on AWS and you're thinking about whether it's data analytics or data integration or data pipelining or computational workflow automation, in many steps of these processes, our partners are embedding artificial intelligence to gain greater knowledge about the data that they're generating. It could be, information related to low-level signals that are captured within doctors' notes. It could be information related to a specific early disease detection information, which could be used to enroll patients into clinical trials as part of exclusion-inclusion criteria. So we see various use cases that rely on artificial intelligence that are being embedded into their solutions. So when you think about your own solution, certainly consider expanding the reach and being able to focus on those areas that may be important to your customers. In terms of partner community, we have been doing this for a long time. So we have many, many partners. Some of them are horizontal partners that focus more on, DevOps or making sure that, applications can be spun up into the cloud, that the data is available, ensuring, various, protocols, are made available. But at the same time, we have also been working very, very hard at bringing very specific healthcare and life sciences organizations into the fold. And at this point, we're probably close to about 350, 370 maybe specific HCLS partners that are focused on not just on sort of the IT operations or corporate IT operations, but primarily focused on the lines of business and beginning to think about how they can use cloud to drive more innovation, for our customers. So this has been evolving, and every week I'm on a call with a partner that is focused on medical imaging or interoperability or potentially migration of EMRs into the cloud. And if you think about it, even though you may say, well, it's primarily Epic, MedHost, and Cerner, but what we have found out through a number of implementations, that there are many, many core travelers. There are so many systems that are connected to these kind of use cases. Could be, thousands of partners. In some cases, it could be as simple as data integration, where you need to capture specific data from other systems, or it could be a specific workflow that requires decision support. So we're seeing more and more partners entering our environment because they see the opportunities to build and get greater reach to their desired customer base. Of course, we are the enterprise leader in this space, so we've been at it for a while, and customers trust AWS to deliver on these journeys. So what is HCLS within AWS? So we tend to separate healthcare and life sciences, even though we understand that they're becoming more and more closer aligned. And a lot of our partners and customers focus on both and delivering solutions to address requirements and needs of both healthcare and life sciences segments. But for easier classification, the way we kind of subdivide healthcare would be along the lines of solutions that are focused on providers and payers. And then in life sciences, it's primarily solutions that are focused on pharmaceutical companies, med devices, genomics, and one sort of recent new vertical, which is agro biosciences. It's still evolving within AWS, but certainly these are the areas where we see the greatest engagement of our partners within Amazon Web Services, as well as with our customers. And these are the areas where we have developed organizations, field organizations, marketing organizations, where we go out to build these relationships and structure the right structure of engagement with our customers, where our partners can deliver their solutions. So just to recap, APN stands for AWS Partner Network, and I lead the healthcare and life sciences segment on a global basis. I have a very small team of folks that are focused on healthcare, life sciences, genomics, med devices, and agriculture. So for our partners, what is sort of the top line benefit that I would indicate? That would be certainly the program is focused on helping our partners build AWS-based businesses by providing valuable business, technical, and marketing support. And when you think of business support, think of it as more of a commercial support, where there is a good level of alignment between AWS sales and business development organization and a partner. And that is something that we will touch upon again, because one of the most important things about building a partnership is not only to think about technical aspects of your solution, but the commercial aspects, because as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we have over 200 of our own native AWS services. And it's extremely important to get to our sellers and to our business development organization that they understand what is a partner solution, how the solution is being positioned, and what are some of the incentives that AWS, not the partner, is providing to our sales organization to ensure that your solution is featured when they have conversations directly with customers. And that's an important aspect of thinking through what needs to be done during the initial stages, not of going to market, but getting to market. Now, for our customers, we have many customers. Some of them are builders, some of them are buyers, some of them are somewhere in between. And they often come to us and they say, look, we're building a new platform for supporting medical imaging. We need to provide information that maybe relies on multimodal data, which takes advantage of data that is captured through neuroimaging data. And we also want to capture genomic information so we can drive linkage and association type decision support to our customers. And some of our customers are coming into us and saying, well, we have a need, and we work backwards, as I think was presented in the previous session, from our customers, and trying to understand what is it they're trying to do, not what we are selling, not what our partners are selling, but what is the underlying need of the customer to deliver results, whether it's for their own business or whether it's a partner that is developing their own solution. We tend to apply exactly the same methodology because many of our partners, of course, are customers, and they leverage AWS services for their own operations. It could be, lead to cash. It could be an operating environment, but in many cases, they go further and they deploy software as a service solutions, or they deliver AWS infrastructure with their solutions to support a specific functional area. We also have many consulting partners, some of them boutique consulting partners, some of them smaller, that focus on very specific areas, which could be areas around bioinformatics or consent support, working with interoperability, making sure that you can connect various data sources for further understanding of the data, which may lead to knowledge and hopefully wisdom based on this information. So this is an important area. As I mentioned before, our partner community is split across consulting partners and technology partners. Some of them, offer solutions in both areas. I would say when it comes to consulting partners, it could be, IT consulting, system integration, application development, managed services. So all of the various areas. Some consulting partners are large, GSIs like Accenture and Deloitte and PwC. And we also have smaller consulting organizations such as BioTeam, which focus primarily on supporting genomics and beyond genomics workloads like proteomics and so on. So we welcome all partners of all sizes. And so even though you may say, well, Accenture and PwC and Deloitte and others are probably grabbing a huge share of the business, that's true. But many of our customers are looking for more nimble, smaller regional partners. For example, a partner in this space like Slalom, even though they have grown quite big, deliver solutions on more regional basis. APM technology partners focus on, software operating systems, potentially, databases of information, data sets, as well as maybe in some cases, hardware that could accelerate data reduction and analytics. The way you can think of partnership is really, with the partnering with AWS is really along three areas: building, marketing, and selling. A lot of our partners, they may be under pressure and they feel that the most compelling thing that they want to do with us is move immediately into the sales area or maybe GTM. And we understand this, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the solutions that our partners bring are actually taking full advantage of AWS services, that they're secure, they're compliant, and we do require certain things to be done prior to the GTM and co-sell motions. And let me cover one at a time to give you some examples in terms of what we mean by each. So when we say build, many of the solutions are focused on making sure that the solution is actually taking advantage of various AWS services in the most efficient way. It could be migration from proprietary database to an open source database, or AWS database that can lower the cost of operation to your customers. So we would assign solution architects. Most of them actually have healthcare or life sciences expertise to work with you and review your solution. This process is called Foundational Technical Review, FTR. And they will help to ensure that your solution is validated, that it is in fact running on AWS. And if there are options to add additional services, such as various analytics or data integration options, they would make some of the suggestions and recommendations to extend the reach of your solution. Of course, you also have access to our healthcare and life sciences folks in professional services organizations, such as ProServe. And many of our partners leverage AWS ProServe organization to help them build their solutions beyond just the validation portion. We also want to de-risk your efforts. We know that you're already investing a lot of money and a lot of efforts into getting your solutions out to the market. So we want to provide promotional credits for doing the development work. And then certainly building the relationship with the service teams and others within the organization. So the relationship in terms of technical support can start, of course, on day one, and should start on day one. Now, marketing, this is an area which most of our partners really want to engage. They see the level of engagement that we have, the level of thought leadership that we drive. Just recently, you might have seen a launch of AWS for Health in the summer. It was on July 15th. There were 85 partners that participated in this effort, with over 155 different solutions focused on various areas of healthcare and life sciences. And they're already telling us now that they're seeing significant growth in demand generation as a result of participating in these programs. Market development funds. We provide funding for joint participation in various third-party events, certainly publishing, papers, blogs, things like that. Presence on AWS website, and of course, invitation to participate in events. I just came back from HIMSS a couple of weeks ago. Certainly, it wasn't the same HIMSS as usual, but we have scheduled over 28 sessions for our partners in AWS Theater, which you can leverage as you move forward to get your solution more known and certainly make it more visible to the buyers. And co-selling, and a lot of people get a little bit confused about co-selling. They think that we are a VAR, or we would sell your solution to our customers. And in some cases it does happen. We are a trusted advisor to our customers, and they do come to us and say, we're looking for a new solution around laboratory information management system, or we need to capture a specific signal as a result of maybe supporting a clinical trial, and we're looking for a company that can support patient-reported outcomes or patient diaries, and we can make some recommendations. But in reality, a lot of it is already, our sales team is already to support your opportunities as you engage with your customers. It could be, we may have a relationship at the C-level. It may require support around implementation qualification and operational qualification. In some cases, it could be, promotional credits, where a customer says, look, I'm migrating from on-premises to the cloud, and that may be more expensive. So there are some examples of the co-sell, certainly account planning, working with our account managers and supporting your journey, existing customer expansion base. You may be selling in one part of the organization where we may have relationships potentially at the CIO level or within a different functional area. AWS does, provide leads, and as you participate in different programs within APN, you will see some of the leads that are generated directly by us, like Salesforce. We can fund some of the proof of concepts that you may be running with a customer. Again, de-risking your route to market and making it easier to get there. So the way to get started is, there is no obligation, is to go to the APN, register. It takes about 10 minutes. You will have a partner development representative assigned to you. I work with all of our PDMs, partner development managers, and PDRs to help you. I'll share this deck with you. Please explore the programs and, of course, explore the marketplace. And sorry, I didn't leave a lot of time for Mike, but Mike, why don't you take over on the marketplace, and then we can maybe answer a few questions.
Yuri, I think we're good. I mean, we have until 45 on the schedule. So if there's some questions now, we can cover those.
Okay. Happy to take some questions. Quiet.
I have one if I may jump in. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. How long does it, what's typically the length of the process? Let's say, we're like, this is great, let's do it. How long until we get on the platform, become a partner, and things start moving? Can you share some experiences?
Sure. So if you're already running on AWS, if your application or your service is already running on AWS, it could be fairly quick. So the process of going through foundational technical review, getting all of the field ready kits done, which are our salespeople are used to seeing sales enablement in a specific format. So getting that done would probably take about 30 days. FTR process about 30 to 45 days. The more important area is participating in some of the programs. So we have programs such as ISV Accelerate, and this program allows AWS to pay our sales team to get, basically it's a spiff, it's a bonus for helping a partner close opportunity. That may take a little bit longer, but in terms of getting on the platform, getting all of the field enablement done, and getting ready for running some of the sales enablement sessions with our organization can be accomplished within 45 to 60 days. I would say that's fairly, it could be fairly optimistic. If a partner is motivated, it certainly can be done in that period of time.
Oh. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
You said you launched like a group of partners that were healthcare focused in July.
Some of them were already partners. We ran a program called Amazon for Health, where we did the following. We wanted to give more emphasis and amplify some of our existing partners. So what we did is we created a variety of use cases across healthcare and life sciences continuum. And what we did is we aligned those use cases with our own AWS native services, as well as what our partners are bringing, so that our customers have a choice. In some cases, they will say, well, we're builders, we're just going to take these AWS services and build on them. But we also launched across all of those use cases a number of partners that offer solutions in a specific area, a number of imaging partners, interoperability partners. So some of them were already partners for a while. What we did as part of this effort, we amplified their presence and their partnership with AWS in July.
Was there anything that surprised you, or that was a surprising outcome from that project, or that you're seeing the residual from right now? You just mentioned interop and imaging.
I would say a lot of interest around going beyond simply initial data reduction, statistical data reduction. A lot of interest around AI and machine learning, and whether interesting areas around clinical trial recruitment were some of the areas, or there were things that focused on next best action. Customers are interested in they call it NBA, which basically would prepare someone to make next best action based on information that they have, but it's not done through manual analysis of data, or even where information is used to a point where it can decide what would be, based on all of the factors, the best next possible step for you to take. And it could be around healthcare journey, or it could be around how a salesperson needs to have a conversation with a doctor when he sees many patients exacerbating, let's say, for respiratory conditions, where they have many uncontrolled asthma patients, and they're moving from controlled to uncontrolled and being prescribed biologics. What are some of the next steps that the salesperson can do in that setting to ensure that the patient stays with the drug from the same manufacturer? How to position that discussion. So it's really kind of moving beyond.
I think we lost Yuri there.
AI, ML, and natural language processing is part of the equation. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now. So yes. I'm going to chime in. Sorry to cut you off, Yuri, but there's some timing issues, which actually are completely my fault. It's what happens when you put a doctor in charge of this. So Yuri will be available. He'll share a PDF version of what he put out there. I am going to put Mike on now, who is going to go over Marketplace, albeit he may have to do it somewhat rapidly, but he will also follow up with a copy of the presentation and also be available through the course of the accelerator. We're really encouraging the cohort to dig into both these programs. So,
hey, Adam, just to clarify, we've got until 45.
Yeah, I don't know that Mike has until 45 because it's not how we booked it initially. So
I'm trying to move some things around right now. Sorry. Give me a sec. I think I'll be able to stay, but just give me a sec.
Sorry, okay. Michael, didn't mean that.
No, not your issue, Yuri. No, not at all.
No, that's 100% my fault. I'm taking ownership on that one.
And again, as Adam indicated, please reach out if you have any questions, follow-ups, want to learn about AWS for Health. I'm here to help you. So.
Great. Well, I guess while Mike is working on that, if there are other questions, we certainly have time. If not, we can take a little pause and see, if you need to stretch or scream silently.
Everybody stretch. Just about.
So I would say this is, so building off of Jason's presentation this morning, you're seeing like real-time bias for action on video. So it's
with a smile.
With a smile too. And Mike, you always smile.
Happy Mike. What are you gonna do? All right, I'm good. All's well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, without further ado, go for it.
All right, super. Thanks. I'll share my screen in a second here. Hopefully it's up. There we go. Please let me know if you can see my screen. I think you can. Just by way, quick introduction, Michael Leonard. I'm the healthcare category lead for AWS Marketplace. My background has also been healthcare IT focused. A lot of that has related to medical imaging, EHR, data protection, archiving, all sort of mixed together over the years. I've worked in various engineering and product management, business development roles at GE, Merge Healthcare, Iron Mountain, Commvault, and a couple of startups along the way. So today I wanted to just walk through some of the key benefits for AWS Marketplace and position it really for, for you, from your perspective as startups, sort of how AWS Marketplace can hopefully help you accelerate your business growth. I mean, that's the goal. If you think about AWS Marketplace, it's really a sales channel. That at the end of the day is how you should think about it. We look at the marketplace as a way to help accelerate the process by which your sales cycle happens. So if you look quickly here, we have now thousands of ISVs that are selling solutions through Marketplace, and there's millions of accounts and hundreds of thousands of active customers on a regular basis transacting third-party solutions through the Marketplace. So as a sales channel, it's grown, quickly over the past 8 or 9 years. What most of the focus had been on initially was infrastructure software. So security, networking, storage, things like that. And as the business grew, the feedback from our customers was that they needed to have more line of business type solutions available as well. So if they bought into the concept, they actually wanted to, have access to more solutions through the marketplace. So over the past year or so, we've started to build out a vertical focus team, which I'm part of, and I'm responsible for healthcare, and I have colleagues responsible for life sciences, media and entertainment, finance, energy, manufacturing, and that list will continue to grow based on what our customers are asking us to do for them. Now, from a healthcare perspective, where that focus started, like I said, over the past year or so, we've been able to quickly grow to have a couple of hundred solutions that are what I would call, clinically focused line of business type solutions. And you can see some of the companies here that we work with. And what I would say to add to what Yuri mentioned earlier, over the summer when HealthLake launched, we had a number of ISVs that wanted to participate in the HealthLake launch, and they wanted to tie those solutions that they wanted to bring to market with HealthLake to Marketplace. So there's a tie-in between APN, Marketplace, and AWS services, which can sort of move across all three of those different areas. But the key point here is that we're focused on trying to bring healthcare ISVs onto Marketplace to, again, help them accelerate their sales cycles and grow their business more quickly by adding a new sales channel. Now, many organizations, they look at, their go-to-market approach and think through, will they sell directly? Will they sell through partners? Will they sell through different marketplaces? And all of those options are still available. This is just an additional channel for you to consider as you look at how you can best reach your customers. I want to touch a little bit on some of the key benefits, both for buyers and sellers, to put this in perspective. We have many buyers that they look at AWS Marketplace, and there are several key benefits to them. Some of them are technical and some of them are business related. From a technical perspective, it comes down to helping their procurement teams operate more efficiently. So the more applications they procure through Marketplace, the easier it is for them to manage those relationships and the renewal of those applications and understanding who has access to them, who can buy them, things like that, because we aggregate that information for our customers. And we also manage the invoicing for all the solutions that are sold through Marketplace as well. So we're handling all the invoicing to the buyer, and we handle the disbursement of all the revenue to the ISVs that are selling solutions through that. The other big benefit to the buyers is tied to their relationship with AWS. And what I mean by that is those organizations that are already working with AWS or growing their relationship with AWS, they look for ways to get discounts, right? So they're always looking for discounted pricing and how can they get better pricing. And one of the key benefits to our discount program is that for any solution they procure through the marketplace, it actually counts towards their cloud spend commitment. So if they spend $1 million on a solution, 500K of that applies to that cloud spend commitment that they might have signed up for. So there's a heavy financial incentive for buying organizations to purchase solutions through AWS Marketplace. Now, from the ISV's perspective that is looking to sell a solution through the marketplace, some of the key benefits have to do with the financial incentives we put in place for our sales team, right? We incent our sales team very heavily to look for opportunities with their customers to provide solutions that are sold through marketplace to those customers. And that incentive is actually the largest incentive available to our sales teams. And so in a similar manner, they're incented at 50 cents on the dollar for moving those deals through marketplace as well. So if it's $1 million transaction, they get quota retirement at $500,000 for that $1 million that deal. So the financial incentives, we've put them in place both to incent buyers to be interested in purchasing through marketplace, and for our sellers to be interested in helping their customers procure solutions through marketplace as well. And those two things really capture the attention of both our sales organization and those customers that are buying or already have that cloud relationship, cloud spend relationship with AWS. A couple of other things I'd point out have to do with how you actually go ahead and sell through marketplace. There's a few different ways that your organization can interact as a seller with marketplace. The most basic, the most common, where the business started, is a self-serve model. If your solution is something that can easily be, downloaded and, set up by a developer really quickly, maybe that self-service model is the way to go. And again, that's where the business started and where we had that initial growth. But over time, what we saw is as there were more enterprise solutions being added to marketplace, those sales cycles, they're more complex just by the nature of them, right? There's more negotiation, there's more back and forth in terms of trying to scope out what the solution might be, what modules might be in play or not. And so that led us down the path of creating what we call private offers. That allows the ISV to work really closely with their buyer to craft the contract, put together, all of the terms and conditions, and then be able to transact that deal through the marketplace. So they're able to, through a portal, it's a very easy portal to use, they're able to upload that contract, share it with the buying organization, and let them, accept it and move on from there. And in that case, we still manage all of the invoicing and disbursement out to the ISV, as well as the invoicing to the customer. And then there's a twist on that, which is our third model. And it really ties into the relationships that resellers have, both with ISVs as well as with healthcare providers. Many providers, they buy through resellers today. They have long established relationships. So we modified that private offer model to enable resellers, and there's close to 500 now, to enable resellers to be able to transact through the marketplace and resell ISV solutions, that they're obviously entitled to be able to sell. But those three motions have really captured, the majority of the way the feedback from our customers has been, but it's captured the majority of the way that our customers are looking to buy solutions through marketplace today. And then the next thing I wanted to touch on just was to give you a quick high level understanding of, what does it actually mean to list on marketplace? And in that case, it is a very simple process to, sign up to become a seller, to register. That process is very quick. You can start to actually go through the steps of listing the solution. Beyond that, there is some technical work that happens, and that is to integrate your environment with AWS Marketplace. There's some light API integration that happens, and it's very well documented. We have code samples and things like that. But that is, sort of a high level overview of what it takes to ultimately integrate with Marketplace. This isn't necessarily integrating your application directly with Marketplace. Some of it has to do with notifications about new users. There's an entitlement level or layer that can come into play depending if you have users that have subscriptions that might have lapsed. And then if there's metering involved, we can manage the ingestion of the metering from you, so that again we can manage the invoicing for those customers. But again, that high level, that kind of gives you an overview of the process. And we have a new integration process for SaaS solutions, which actually is speeding up that process for the actual technical integration. And obviously I could go into more detail about that if you want to have further follow-on conversations. And I did mention, there's a couple of different models for how you deploy solutions with AWS Marketplace. We started with Amazon Machine Images, AMIs, but over time we've added several other ways to deploy solutions that are sold through Marketplace, whether it's a SaaS solution. We have many organizations that are selling API-based solutions now. Change Healthcare is a good example of that. And we also support cloud formation templates, and SageMaker is heavily involved with many of the machine learning solutions that are sold through Marketplace as well. And the container services part of the business is also growing pretty rapidly, and there'll be some interesting announcements about that later this year. But you can see there's a number of different ways that we're able to sell solutions through the Marketplace. So we support a number of different deployment models. And then the other thing that I would touch on before I wrap up here is it's also important to consider the contracting approach. One of the key reasons that Marketplace has been successful for the ISVs is that it's helped speed up the sales cycle for ISVs that are selling through Marketplace. And we have white papers and other things that can kind of give more details about that. But one of the keys is that we created standardized contracts, and we spent time with a couple of hundred buyers and sellers and tried to figure out what are all the things that everybody gets hung up on. What gets redlined all the time? What parts of contracts can be taken out, modified, or agreed on, across buyers and sellers to try to simplify the contracting process itself. And so we've created these standardized contracts that ISVs can either use them as is, they can modify them, as desired if there's certain things you want to make sure are covered, or you can actually use your own contracts if you already have something that works well for you. But we found that this has definitely helped speed up the sales cycle by taking out some of that friction between the different legal teams when contracts tend to kind of get slowed down in some of these negotiations. But this has been a big deal to help with that. And the other thing I would say in closing here is that, depending on how you sell today and the model that you've found successful with your customers, right? You can see here, we support a number of different ways to approach the actual, sale of the solution and the type of model you want to use from a pricing perspective, whether it's actually, a subscription that they can walk away from. Is it based on, time? Is it a contract that there's no metering and maybe it's a monthly contract or an annual or multi-year contract? As you can see, there's a number of different ways we can approach that. And I think that I'll probably, I'll stop there. I don't want to go too much into the partner piece, but we did enable partners, as I mentioned before, so they're able to continue their relationships with both the ISVs that they might be working with or interested in working with, as well as with the provider organizations that they've probably been working with for years and have those long established relationships with. So that reseller piece has become more important as we've moved up into more enterprise solutions as well. And Adam, I think I'll stop there, but I'll definitely share the slides, and there's a few more comments in follow-on slides that'll be helpful for some of the deeper information that I didn't get into today.
That was great. Thanks. Questions from the group?
And if there's questions later, I'm happy to have follow-up conversations or back and forth through email, or let Adam, he can help set up any calls if you need to. Happy to do that.
I'll ask. Sorry, Emma, go ahead.
I was just a question. How can we better understand the benefit to our end clients, like the actual economics of that? In terms of if they buy something through the marketplace and then they get a discount on what they're doing?
Sure. So it's not a discount on your solution. It really plays into their cloud spend commitment. So consider it a discount plan. So if they have a cloud spend commitment in place with AWS, where they've committed to, some amount of budgeted spend over a number of years, they're going to factor in the types of solutions that they're planning to buy over the upcoming years. Let's say it was a 3-year commitment. Their senior leadership team is going to spend time thinking about what are the key solutions we're going to buy. And, sometimes there's extra money budgeted as well if there's smaller things that come up along the way. But they try to take into account the types of solutions they're going to purchase that would be relevant, to their AWS relationship. So by going through that process, they then look at those budgeted solutions they're going to procure. And if they feel that it's a good fit, they will want to procure that through the AWS Marketplace. So if it's a solution that's already sold through the marketplace, right, they'll work with that ISV and say, hey, we'd prefer to transact through the marketplace, whether it's the self-serve model or a private offer model. That would depend on the solution. But they look at it as a way for them to use that incentive to help them meet that spend commitment. Now, if there's a solution that they're looking at that's not a marketplace, sometimes they'll reach out to that vendor and say, are you planning to list on marketplace? Or they'll reach out to us, my team, and say, hey, we're talking to this ISV. Could you explain, sort of the benefits of marketplace to them? So sometimes it happens ahead of a sale. Sometimes it might actually come up during their conversations with an ISV, and they look to, again, to benefit the buyer. They look for ways for the ISVs to participate as well.
I guess what I'm getting at here is when I'm looking at the total cost of ownership of our solution, and for instance, the storage and compute resources required to run our solution at an institution, and they're considering on-prem resources versus cloud resources. What I'm sort of asking with is, as a part of this program, is there a way for us to get deeper into understanding what that total cost of ownership is?
If it's running in your AWS environment, you're going to have visibility into that.
Hospitals.
The hospitals. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Typically, with our solution, we don't provide the hardware or cloud services, right? We rely on the hospital to provide the servers or the cloud resources. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, if there is a benefit to being on Marketplace for our customers, what does that translate into dollars and cents and the total cost of ownership, right? So I know you can't answer that right now, but I just want to put it like as a pin up there and just say, is there a way for us to have a deeper conversation around that?
Yeah, we can definitely have a conversation around it. I think a lot of that will come down to the pricing that's available to that buyer, right? And that will partly depend on their discounting. But there are calculators that will help sort of explain what the pricing for the infrastructure would look like when your solution's running on top of it.
Emma, I think I can talk. I think I've got an idea. So I work at a children's hospital. I think I can. I know where you're going, and if we have a specific spend, we need to use our specific amount of credits, and I choose your solution that's on Marketplace versus somebody else who's not. There's an argument that I can make around, my total expenditure for the project, which would involve paying for your license and the cloud spend I'd have to have. That total cost, I think, would be less. It could be less, perhaps, if you're on Marketplace. I think that's what you need to figure out and calculate. But that's what I think that's where you're trying to get to, right?
Yeah, because to me, I'm not necessarily sure that we're going to get efficiencies and speed of contract. I mean, I really like all these different elements you're talking about, but to me, the differential is in the value to our customers, right? And so that's what I really need to understand.
So their value, right, the value to them of any solution they procure through Marketplace, if they have a cloud spend commitment in place, is that it's going to help them meet their spend commitment sooner. They see that as hugely important because that's a hard commitment that they're making with AWS. It's not a soft commitment. So if they get to the end of 3 years and they haven't met their commitment, there's some sort of true up that happens. So they're looking at it as, okay, if we're going to stretch to have a larger spend commitment, we're going to look to procure more solutions through Marketplace to help us meet that commitment. Now, so two things happen. One, the value of your deal counts, as credit towards their spend commitment, but that solution, that if it's running on, EC2 and S3 or whatever else the storage might be, they're getting a lower price for all those services because they signed up for the spend commitment. So they are tied together, but they don't get an even lower price because they procured your solution. They're getting the lower price on the infrastructure services because they have the spend commitment, and then procuring your solution helps them meet that commitment to have that lower pricing. Go ahead. Sorry, Adam.
No. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to add in there. So if you think about it, right, when they enter into these type of agreements with AWS, it's all based around core AWS services in our platform. Marketplace allows them the flexibility to then purchase solutions that are built on AWS and to lower that spend commitment, despite not using it directed. It's like an indirect way of using on AWS services.
And what happens if they're using AWS compute resources on non-marketplace applications? Does that doesn't contribute to their utilization of?
Yeah. The core use, we're getting in the weeds here, but like the core usage of AWS services is what lowers their overall spend commitment over time. So my point is, by purchasing solutions in addition to that are on Marketplace, they can also lower that spend. But the core of it is usually directed at the services that they're using as part of their infrastructure.
So let's just say they only used EC2 and S3, and they were doing their own thing, and they were just running some application that they developed, right? They could potentially get a discount to spend at some level. If they're then buying a third-party application, right, we're basically saying we're going to apply the revenue that you're spending on that third-party application to help you meet the spend commitment that you had already signed up for. So it does take into account that they're going to run your solution on top of AWS infrastructure, but we're applying your deal to their cloud spend commitment as well. So the cost of your software just benefits them by lowering that more quickly, or I should say, meeting the commitment more quickly.
Basically, they're burning down two things. They're burning down the utilization of the actual resources, and they're burning down sort of this commitment spend number.
Yes. Well, they're burning down the spend commit number because they're using the AWS resources, but we're adding the value of your software into what helps them burn down the commitment.
And Emma, I think your point about why something that's on Marketplace versus not, I think is the middle part of the slide that's on the screen. It's this concept of there being a trusted network. And so if I'm a buyer and I've got three solutions that look similarly, and AWS has done the vetting around who's on their marketplace, it adds a level of credibility as we go through our audit processes.
But you're also validated if you're APN, but not necessarily a marketplace, right?
So validating the solution for sure. Yep. But if you're, as a seller, if you're part of APN, but not participating in marketplace, the deal value of your solution doesn't count towards the EDP that they signed up for.
Yeah, thank you. That really helps.
No, nor to the seller as well, the AWS seller.
Correct.
Marketplace is the best way of commercial alignment with our sellers, it as well as our customers. It really gets them excited because it works both ways to ensure, both revenue commitment are met, as well as, of course, for salespeople, it's a sales quota retirement. Those are big issues.
And I didn't really even get into the go-to-market, like the co-marketing part of it, right? I mean, Yuri touched on that for APN. Similarly, on the marketplace side, we have programs that help with co-marketing as well, and look for ways that marketplace ISVs get to participate in, we did a healthcare symposium, we do webinars, we look for opportunities to have speakers at things like HIMSS and health and RSNA and other places in our booth or with one of our experts as well, which is a whole separate section of it. Yep.
I think you provided some insight on the time it could take to go through the technical setup. I think one of the things I also think about with our solution is that we have a number of products that can be purchased on a per bed basis. And that pricing structure doesn't necessarily translate to maybe what you already have as an infrastructure. So I'm not sure how the logistics of making sure the contract and the invoicing would transfer over easily. That might be also a longer term setup.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk more in details about that. Our pricing, the way pricing works in Marketplace, it has to be super flexible for us because we're dealing with so many thousands of vendors. We've come across most ways that folks want to be able to transact, and the private offer process actually gives even more flexibility because you're able to negotiate the deal you want with your customer and then basically input that information into this portal that you would have access to. And it's fairly straightforward across many different pricing models. And I'd be happy to talk more about that and learn a little bit about how you price.
And something that may be more apt to other people, I don't mean to totally co-opt the Q&A session, but the cost of being part of the marketplace, I don't think we saw anything directly on that. So what is
and I'll include some information about that as well. So the cost to the ISV to participate, we call it a listing fee. It really should be focused on the actual transaction. So to actually put your listing up, go through the process, that's free. There's no charge to actually do that. But for each deal that you close, depending on the type of application you have and the size of the deal, there's a sliding scale of what those fees can be. And they can range anywhere from 20% down to just a couple of percentage points. And that, again, just depends on the size of the deal and type of applications. And I can include a table that gives an overview of that.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for shifting your schedule. You were a real-time example of all the leadership principles that we just referenced in the presentation right before. So thank you.
Well, on this side of the cancellation, that's true. I'll deal with the fallout on the other end. But that's okay.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. All right. I think we're ready for the last session, right, Adam? For the last section.
Yes. Yeah, I think we are all set. One thing I do want to add just real quick as a follow-up to that. I know there's a lot of information, about APN Marketplace. Myself, Martina and Joe, we're really pretty focused on Marketplace. And the reason being is it provides the best incentive to our internal sales team. So one point of background that we never covered before. So like the three of us, we don't own accounts. We don't get paid on quota. So we literally have your vested interest, number one here. And the best way when we try to get the sellers to pay attention to startup solutions that we bring, ultimately it's going to be in how they're reimbursed. I mean, that's just the bottom line in how they figure out how to manage their time. And, Mike covered there, but Marketplace is the best way to do that. So coming out of this accelerator, each company here is going to be very, very, very top of mind. So any of you that can come out of this and potentially leverage Marketplace, I think it will really help you to capitalize on that. If there are challenges and you have interest, reach out to me. There are a couple different things that are kind of in the works to potentially assist. Nothing concrete, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to add that commentary on the back end.
Can I ask you a quick question? Do you suggest that we kind of start, if we have interest, should we start the process now? So as we're going through the accelerator, also going through the process with Marketplace, or do you feel like it's better to wait more towards the tail end?
No, I would say if you have interest, that's a parallel discussion to everything else that I would engage in early. I mean, Mike is a great resource. So we can reach out to set up time with him. He's more than happy to start digging into, a little more of the nitty gritty. Once he'll send the deck along and we can share it out. But yeah, I would encourage you if you don't need to like commit, right? But if you think there's some interest there, I would say dig in early, because you're going to have all these resources at your fingertips for realistically the next 5.5 weeks. So it might help you to get through that process quicker.
A related question. So if I assign someone from my team to kind of own this process and get us kind of onto the marketplace, who would they reach out to if they have questions after they see the presentation because they weren't part of this session?
So certainly, so Mike Leonard would be the point of contact. He is the healthcare person. Myself, Martina, and Joe can certainly work to connect you with him, or you can even reach out directly. I think he probably either shared or will share his email. But just reach out to any of us and we'll make it happen.
All right. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I know many of you have needs assessments and one-on-one meetings with us at different points of the day, but in terms of a couple things. So Emma, you brought up document sharing. We're working on getting that done, so we'll have something to you very soon. So stay tuned for that. A couple other housekeeping notes. If you haven't completed your NDA yet, signed it yet, please do. I know you're working with Adam on that. Similarly, there's a marketing authorization form, which we heard about yesterday, which was sent out yesterday through email. Please make sure you sign that. If you have any questions, let us know. But it's important as we put together marketing plans and marketing collateral that we want to make sure we can include you and we have the authorization to do that. And then finally, tomorrow, we're doing a value-based Pechakucha type session. The goal is just to really
Thursday,
get you all Thursday, excuse me.
But
so
the slide is due tomorrow.
The slide's due tomorrow for the Thursday session. So if you could please have that submitted back. The instructions for that were in the email. But before we wrap, any final thoughts, questions about today's sessions and or things that we can look forward to for tomorrow?